I want you to understand something about those data centers. I voted for the woman who passed Senate Bill 4 that put it in motion in the first place, and I wanted to say something as a public statement about all of it and my true feelings regarding all of it. And I want you to see it. I want you to see like what's going on here and what's being said. And it's basically, anyone know what's going on by Jackson School Road, east side of Jackson Road? Or are you leaving town? As you're leaving town, headed north, they're doing some pretty heavy duty work, and this was 8 months ago. Huge fleet of heavy equipment employed, fair amount of excavation. Sad to see the windmill gone after all these years. I assume it has something to do with the airport. Anyone know what's going on over there? And then someone says, I used to put a can in the dollar in a can at the gate of this farm and go fishing for catfish in the pond when I was a boy. And then somebody wrote, "Congratulations, you get another data center." And then somebody wrote, I don't know why our city is doing this. When you control data center, you control information." And then somebody writes, "This just sucks. Waste of precious resources." And then somebody wrote, "I would love that, thanks." And then somebody else wrote, "Likely another data center. 190 years of farming ends as latest massive data centers and factories expand in Hillsborough. Oh, what loving news! What lovely news! Nothing surprising, I suppose. Thanks for the answer. Building more AI for Dirk. Oh my God, is he okay? Do you know Dirk? What about Ernie?" Somebody, and then this person comes, assuming that this argument will convince me not to build data centers, but in fact, it will do more to sell data centers to me. They write, "Absolute worst business I can go in." Great. Sounds like we should have more of that in that community. Uses water and electricity like a hog. Love it. Kicks off enough BTU to modify the climate. Love it too. And provides a minimal number of jobs per square foot. So, basically what you're telling me is that it will fulfill a lifelong, dream of seeing the land values under the feet of the property owners that lived in the Jackson School subdivision plummet. After it modifies the climate, it'll be unlivable. So that's great. It's all welcome news, fully. And then somebody says, "Well, it's good. It's a good thing they pay their taxes to help support the local community, right? Right? Of course they don't. Property tax, sure, but that was being paid before them as well. Very little payroll tax, very little money spent in the community versus land use. In comparison, to manufacture would employ many persons." Yeah, well, no, it wouldn't. In fact, modern manufacturing is almost all automated, so it wouldn't create a single fucking job. It wouldn't create many jobs at all because most of it would be done by robots. Feeding into the community with more tax. Yeah, shit changes. Manufacturing isn't done the way that it was. Back when creating a manufacturing plant would employ many people. Today, it wouldn't. They put in a new manufacturing plant and it would create about as many jobs as putting in a data center. Not many. You're wrong there. I think they make a joke about how Hillsborough has a history of giving excessive tax breaks to tech companies to develop new projects like this. They were making a joke. Well, yeah, but electricity, water, no. Yes, water, no. At least the current data centers in Hillsborough, most of them. Well, anyways, you're only selling me on this stuff. You're only making me convinced that we need more like this because this, it hurts. It hurts the people that live there, and they deserve it. I believe the flower farm that the windmill moved further down the road intends to reopen next year, but I'm not 100% sure. And then the windmill is officially gone. Saw that destruction happen, but the small business owners made a post on Facebook earlier this year. It filled to the tune of reopening the flower stand at their new location. They are building data centers, the worst kind of tenant, no workers, and sucks up a lot of water and electricity. I hope they're highly taxed via property tax, or water and electricity rates are going to go up. I'm here, sitting here, and this is the view that I've come to, and and the opinion that I have about all this. But the beatings are going to continue until morale in this community improves. You see, coming up through this way, the kind of people that I had to be subjected to were the kind of people that would run around with bumper stickers on their car that basically said Jackson School for Jackson subdivision families only. That was the popular line of argument in the whole class warfare debate back then in the 90s. It's depressing how little anything has changed ultimately in that regard. So I think that I have to resort to extraordinary measures. You see, those data centers going in are Janine Solomon's policies via Senate Bill 4 that passed in 2023. now going in and being implemented in land development, back in 2025, 8 months ago, and they're still probably going to do even more of it. I am going to vote for her reelection. The only thing that could make me change my mind about pushing for more and more tech in this area is if I saw some local community push back against, an agitation against bullying in the schools. Jackson Elementary pushed under the rug the fact that there has always been a pretty big bullying problem at the school. It hasn't changed much, has it? I've seen no policy directives that basically would indicate the school has changed its stance on this one. You know, I think that we need to push. My threat here at this point is you all seem to hate data centers. You seem to realize just how little they do for the community. Well, good for you. So proud of you for being so knowledgeable about this one. But I love it. I love that it's going to waste a bunch of resources for Oregon, and that's going to be costly and create very few jobs and pay very little in taxes and give very little back to the community, because it's not really about that for me. At the end of the day, it's about making you suffer, because you coming up here through the 90s, I was tormented by families in the Jackson School subdivision and their children who inflicted their wrath out on me, and to any complaint, I had teachers that would basically see the behavior happening over and over, and a modus operandi develop, of the bullied kid targeting me time after time after time. And instead of escalating consequences, they just kept sending them to the principal's office every time, which is ridiculous. These kids, if they misbehave and they keep doing the same thing, obviously the punishment isn't working. You got to shift the policy. You got to shift the discipline method up. Otherwise, they're just going to keep doing it, because obviously they're not bothered by trips to the principal's office anymore. It doesn't, they can put up with it. It's not a big deal to them anymore that this is going on. And eventually you have to threaten to expel them. You have to go to their families and basically say, what, you want to raise your boy via, boys will be boys, and, let them run rampant with bullying and everything. You can do that, but you're not going to do it at Jackson Elementary. You're going to have to send your boy to a school for troubled children, because if they keep this up, they're going to be expelled. You know? They never did that. That never happened. It never rose to that point, because they were never willing to do what it would take to get the bullying to stop as far as the staff were concerned. So, I was subjected to an extraordinary amount of bullshit growing up, and terrible conduct. And so, I look at this, a newly returned to the community after being away for quite a while and everything, living, not in Hillsboro, but way out further west, near the Forest Grove side of things. And, I'm just sitting here cheering this on. I love it. I love it. I want more like this. I want to, because what I want is to kick the community in the teeth. You tormented me as a child, and I have watched this community that is there, basically violate my core value for, inclusivity. You have trampled all over it and shown its scornful conduct, and very extreme amounts of scorn in this community. You wanted it to be an exclusionary club in that subdivision, and for the school to only belong to kids that lived in it. You were always trying to redraw the zoning maps in the community. This is the kind of people I grew up around. No wonder I hate humanity. No wonder I have so little faith in humans. This is disgraceful behavior by the community. What kind of people does this? I can assure you it's not good people. It's vile, evil, wicked, mean-spirited, pig fucking assholes who thoroughly have the destruction of the agrarian community and massive data centers being run right through their community as karmic punishment for being as big as scumbags as they are. So this is my threat at this point, and it's not really just a threat, it's a promise, because so help me God, I will follow through. I will. It's going to happen, because what's the point of issuing a threat if you're not going to actually shoot the hostage? I will keep voting for her. I'll vote for her re-election. And the only thing that might make me reconsider who I vote for that position is if I start to see more people agitate for the schools shifting towards a zero tolerance policy towards bullying. until we let them know it's not welcome in our community, at our schools, I will do more and more and more of this until you stop giving me shit, stop disagreeing, stop trying to tell me that I'm wrong, and just tear out your opinion, or abandon it, and replace it with mine. I don't give a shit if you disagree. Do what I want, or you're gonna get more of this. I'm gonna keep doing it. And I'll do more and more of it until I alienate all the members of that community out and create a surplus of housing. And I don't give a shit if they leave. Because if they leave, they'll sell their houses. And then that will have the effect of destroying the property value out there, which means it's a lot cheaper for a family like mine to move in. So, I don't really care. You want to get the fuck out, be my guest. I demand that you change your political activism and start pushing for it. And this is the threat. This is what's going to keep happening as a form of terrorism until you fall in line.